All right, guys, welcome to another Kinstretch class with Kirk. Today we have hip extension, one of the most common missing ranges of motion in the hip for sure. So hip extension is bringing the hip this way. Okay, this is flexion, this is extension. The one thing to note before we get started with this class, and if you guys have done this class already, you can just skip over this part, just scroll ahead to actually getting into the class. But if you've never done this class, we got to understand there's two ways to get hip extension, okay? The first is like I showed you. It's kind of bringing the hip or the femur back relative to the pelvis, okay? The second way is the femur staying stable and then dipping the pelvis back on the downside femur, okay? So the more we can understand that, the better stretch we're going to get in the front part of the hip. And then the other piece to that is that, the further we dive into this position here, it's not inherently a bad position. But if we're trying to get true hip extension, it's actually hip extension plus some shear in the pelvis and the SI joint in that lumbosacral junction. It's some movement that isn't necessarily, again, inherently bad, but it's something that we want to limit with this class because we're just training hip extension, okay? So we're going to start with half kneeling hip cars. For those of you that haven't done this, it's a little bit of a weird movement. So I'm going to show you just up against the wall here quick, and then I'll actually do the exercise. So just watch here. So you're going to be in half kneeling here, and then the front leg is going to be the one doing the car. You can create some like pressure into the wall as you come up, out, rotate around, and then squeeze. With the other hip, we want to make sure we're kind of driving what I just talked about with that posterior pelvic tilt into hip extension, okay? So let's start with 4 hip cars each way. We'll start with the right foot. Again, create like a little pressure into the wall with this. Create some tension in your core. So if you have to, the Core 360 belt can be a great option for this because it helps you create the right amount of intra-abdominal pressure with the core to stabilize the low back and the pelvis. So kind of use these pods, create some outward pressure like you've seen in past videos. Okay, so we're going to be here, create some pressure into the wall, and up, out, rotate around, and back, up, out, rotate, bring your heel up towards the ceiling, carving as much range as you can. Number 3, rotate, squeeze into extension. One more. Rotate around. If you're getting any closing angle joint pain, any pinch points, just work your way around those. Okay, so again, with this downside leg, we want to make sure we're tilting the pelvis back. You should feel a nice stretch in the front part of the hip as you're holding this position. We're going to come into extension, abduction, rotate around, back. Number 2. Nice, slow and controlled. Create as much irradiation and tension throughout the rest of the body. I like to push into the wall. That helps me create some good tension to avoid movement happening elsewhere. And then make sure with the pelvis and the low back that we're nice and solid, creating 360 degrees of pressure in the abdomen. There's 4. Left leg, same thing. Create some pressure. Nice breath into the belly, push into the wall. Tilt this pelvis back, get a nice stretch in the front part of the hip, and up with the left leg, out, rotate around, bring your heel up towards the wall, and up, out, rotate around. Number 2. 3. One more, just hovering off the ground, out, rotate around, right into extension. Squeeze your butt back. Number 2. Number 3. And number 4. All right. So now we're going to grab a dowel of some kind. You actually don't need this one that big. So this one should work just fine for me, okay? So if you don't have a dowel of any kind, you can use a broomstick, a hockey stick, a golf club, any kind of long enough handle that can help you create tension and pressure during this exercise. Okay, so when you go into pails rails, there's 2 things you'll have to watch for. Now, the first thing, just get into this stretch. So I want you to tuck the pelvis back, and you'll feel a nice pull in the front part of this pelvis. You can toy around with the position of the backside leg, bring it in, out. Those different variations can kind of pull on different areas of the hip flexors. When you're getting that nice pull, just hold there where you feel your greatest stretch, okay? So from here, I just want to point out before we get into the pails rails portion that it's kind of a weird feeling, and I've described this to like my patients when we're going through rehab with this, as you want to almost try to crush the earth and kind of bring it together between this heel and this knee. So you're not moving. Again, it's an isometric. So the pails is going to be like this push here and pull here. And then on rails, it's the opposite. Now on rails, I really want you to think about tucking the pelvis back as hard as you possibly can while squeezing the glute, okay? But I don't want you to have the glute like overpower you into this position here. I want you to really suck that pelvis back while squeezing the glute as hard as you can. And that's going to drive you into the most amount of hip extension possible to where you'll feel the most stretch, okay? All right, so my greatest stretch is right here. And now we're going to just jump into pails, okay? So again, I'm pulling this leg back and I'm pushing this knee forward 25% of your maximum capacity. Slowly ramp it up to 50% and 75. And your greatest, safest effort, hard as you can push, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Drive this way, 3, 2, 1. Right into extension. Squeeze your butt, but tilt your pelvis back. You should feel a huge pull on the front side of your pelvis here. Hold this for 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And relax. The one thing about this stretch is it's not really passive. Because you're having to tilt the pelvis posterior like the whole time to get this stretch, it's not as passive as some other stretches. There's different ways to get different passive stretches here. Like if we were to just kind of dip into this position here, it's a lot more passive. But for this class, I really want you to focus on posterior tilt of the pelvis. Get that awareness, get that feeling of driving more hip extension, okay? Just hold this position for a sec. And we're going to go into number 2 here, okay? All right, so we're going to drive this knee forward, this heel back, not actually moving. 25%. There's a scale of 100. You're at 25% of as hard as you could possibly push. And you're slowly going to ramp that up to 50% now. Slowly build to 75. And then 100%. Hard as you can push. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now we're going to tilt the pelvis back, squeeze your butt as you're doing that. So we're driving this as hard as we can. Create some radiation and tension with your hand. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And relax. So we did not get our 2-minute passive stretch in. As is per usual with these classes, we try to speed things up a little bit, okay? So if you notice a ton of tension, a ton of tightness on that stretch, feel free to pause the video. Accumulate some time. To make tissue changes, you just need time under tension a little more. So we're going to get into the stretch on the left side. Now, again, tilt that pelvis posterior. You can scan that tissue, moving the foot in and out. So I feel a big stretch right there. So that's where I'm going to hold. We're not going to wait too long with this again. Same thing. If you feel a ton of stretch, feel really, really tight, which a lot of people will. And even if you want to, tape yourself doing this, and if you notice you're like, can't even get this pelvis, this like straight line up, this would be a great place to spend some time stretching. Okay. So now we're going to go into pails, drive this knee forward, this heel back, 25% of your maximum capacity, just starting to create some tension up to 50%. Slowly build to 75. Create some tension in the core, 100% hard as you can push. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Don't lose position. We're going to tilt the pelvis back. Squeeze your butt as you're doing this. 10, 9, hard as you can. Safest, greatest effort. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Take a couple breaths. As you relax, let your nervous system ramp down a little bit. A couple nasal breaths is always a good idea after pails rails. But we're going to go into one more set here. We're not going to give you too much of a break. Again, we want to get done this hip extension class in a decent time. All right, so here we go. We're going to go in 3, 2, 1, go. Driving this knee and this heel together. Trying to, if you have a mat, you're trying to create some dimples in that mat. Ramp it up to 50%, 75, and 100%. Hard as you can push. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Right into rails. We're going to tip the pelvis back. We're squeezing our butt as we do that. Don't lean forward too much. We're just squeezing this line to be straight up, tilting the pelvis back. Squeeze your butt. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And relax. And if you feel a ton of pulling all the way down that front part of the quad, I would actually recommend working your way into the hip extension plus knee flexion class, because that one will be nice to get a little more of what's called the rectus femoris. That muscle attaches up on this part of the pelvis, and it's the only quad muscle that attaches past the hip and then past the knee. So it can have big implications for limiting hip extension, especially with a knee bend. Okay, so now we're going to go into just some isometrics here. So all we'll do is we're going to get into the side lying position, okay? So when we're here, I just want you to really try to get as close to end range as you can. Okay, so we're kind of holding that same position that we were in with rails. And now we're just going to create some 5-second bursts into the wall with this position, okay? I like the yoga block underneath my head just to support, and then a yoga block in between the legs. Now, if you're someone who has more natural space between your legs, depending on your pelvis and everything, you can tip the yoga block here. If you're someone who needs less, feel free to tip it down here. I like my neutral here. If I were to look at, like, is this a straight line? Pretty darn good when the yoga block's in that position there, okay? Now, to start, we're doing the right leg. The left leg can be bent a little bit, and it's just hanging out on the bottom here. The top leg's where we're going to create all of our tension, okay? So with this, I like to create fists, just like when I'm doing side lying hip cars. So I'd like to create this fist. The other thing you can do is grab a medicine ball, and I'll just show you that variation. So just like this, and then squeeze that medicine ball, and just helps to create some tension and radiation, okay? So from here, I just want you to squeeze as hard as you can purely into hip extension. Okay, so here we're gonna hold for 5 seconds. We're gonna do 5 rounds of these. Okay, so we're gonna go in 3, 2, 1, go. Tilt your pelvis back, push as hard as you possibly can through your heel and your whole foot into the wall. Don't let your pelvis tip forward and your low back extend. We're staying nice and solid through everything else. Hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. And go again. Hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. And hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. Hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. One more. Hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. Whew. All right. And we're going to flip to the other side here. Head comes onto the yoga block on this side, okay? So I love this position just to be able to maintain a really good stack position between the ribcage and pelvis while getting some amazing activation through the backside glute into hip extension. The wall's just a nice little, resistance, and we can get end range to begin with, and then kind of force movement at end range, not movement, activation at end range via already being in that posterior pelvic tilted position, okay? All right, so we're going to go again here, tilt that pelvis posterior, right? We're going to create some tension through the core. We're going to squeeze this ball to create a radiation, and then we're going to go and squeeze that backside heel and the whole foot and push it into the wall as hard as you can in 3, 2, 1, go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. You're trying to almost drive a hole through the wall. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. The harder you can squeeze this ball too, it's easier to resist the extension of the rib cage. And then go in 3, 2, 1, go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. One more. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. Whew. Those are brutal. Okay, so that's just creating some good activation at end range. Now we're going to pop right in and we're going to do some hovers, okay? So I'm going to use the kettlebell and we're going to start with this kind of, so we'd start in quadruped, we'll kick our right leg back, then we'll pop back here like this, okay? So you should be able to do a lift off in this position before you do a hover, okay? So the hover is just going to be over the kettlebell and down, okay? When you're here, you just want to make sure that it's a challenge to get over the kettlebell. So for someone that's a little more bendy, feel free to come down, place this foot into plantar flexion, and then sink lower into your heel. Again, I'm running out here, so for me, I cannot create extension in that position. But for some people, you will be able to do that, and it's a great goal to have. So if you can do that, that's awesome. So I'm going to go back to here. And if you can't get into this position that I'm in even, feel free to come up onto your hands, and then just raise your butt up a little bit, and then you can do the hovers that way, okay? So we're going to go right into this, okay, and we're going to do 10 each way, okay? So the other way that you can make this a little more challenging, you can see if I don't come up enough, I'm going to knock that kettlebell over. So that's why I do like a kettlebell for this one, right? And then if you want to make it more of a challenge for yourself, you can bring it kettlebell up higher here as well. Okay, so we're going to create some tension, some intra-abdominal pressure. I like to push the ground away and almost suck your forearms into the ground. It's a great way to create some good scapular stability. Basically, We're stabilizing other parts of the body while we're actively moving the hip here. Okay, so stabilize, create some tension, and then squeeze. Nice, slow and controlled. Squeeze. Squeeze. And just tap as you come down. I just want you to keep going with this. Couple more reps, guys. Okay. Take some nice deep nasal breaths. You can see that's brutal. The nice part about this position is it's pretty self-limiting in terms of like how much lumbar extension you're going to drive, right? So if we were in quadruped and we are trying to do this, a lot of people are going to go like this, right? So this position almost takes that completely out of the equation, and it forces you to truly drive hip extension. Okay? So we're going to go one more set of that. Move. Nice, slow, and controlled. We're going to try to slow it down a little bit more. And I just worked out, so my glutes are taxed right now. So I got a good burn going on. So I'm going to go again here in 3, 2, 1, go. We're going to drive up, parachute down, up, in, down, up, out, down, up, in, down. And relax. That is a burner. All right. So I'll just switch sides here. I'm still working on kind of some of those more challenging sets, getting better at talking through them. So we're going to come back into that position. Again, we're going to dip down. So just pretend you're in quadruped. Kick that left leg back. Come on back. I am up on my toes on both of these. If you wanted a little challenge, you could come down. I like to, if you're feeling really good about it, just come here, bring your right foot into plantar flexion, and then you should be able to still kind of lift it off the ground. Again, I'm not there. So I like to come right here, create my tension, and we're going to go in 3, 2, 1, go. Nice, slow and controlled reps. Don't let your pelvis rotate. Oh, the movement should be coming from that hip. And relax. Oh my gosh. All right, I need to take a sec here. So you can see that it really forces, that's why I love that position so much. It just really forces a good kind of neutral position with the pelvis and the low back without you having to think about it too much. And because of like the amount of activation we need here, you're still going to need to brace the core with this, okay? So we're going to come back into our position. This is round 2. We're going to go in 3, 2, 1, go. And relax. If you're feeling really strong with that, feel free to throw some ankle weights on there. And we'll probably have more of the ankle weight type stuff with hip extension in our more advanced course. All right. So let's just dive into some capsule cars here. And we're going to do this out of a glute bridge position. I'm just going to take this belt off. All right. Now with this position, we're going to bring it up just into like a single leg glute bridge. If you've ever done physiotherapy, ever done any rehab, glute bridges were the hot commodity for a long time. Still a great activation exercise, just as kind of a starter point. Okay, so we're going to come up, and then on this top side leg, I'm just going to get you to go into hip, internal, and external cars. Okay. As you hold that, so really we're driving hip extension here, and then we're finishing with some capsule cars over here. So right side is going to be in a hip extension. Okay, so we're going to drive that position. All right, so let's start here. The left side comes up. Hold that right side, and we're going to do 7 capsule cars each way. 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5. Don't lose position. 6, 6, 7, 7. I do not know why I thought that was a good idea to work out before a hip extension mobility workout, but here we are. Okay, so we're gonna do the same thing here. So we're gonna do a glute bridge all the way up. You should start to feel activation here, and then maybe a little pull on the front side as well. Stabilize. This leg comes up. 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7. Squeeze it. Beautiful. All right, guys. That is our hip extension mobility class, our Kinstretch class. If you have any questions about that course, just make sure you're working on that position of the pelvis and not letting it purely come from getting too far into that hip extension position. So thanks for coming to class today. We'll see you at the next one.